Though it's easy to argue that gaming as a medium has never been better, lootbox nonsense notwithstanding of course, it's disheartening to consider that for every game that scores a 90 plus on Metacritic, there are literally dozens of potentially great games that never see the light of day. In the case of these 10 titles though, they were largely announced long ago on a wave of hype and enthusiasm, but in the years since, the buzz has slowed to a crawl, and jaded fans have mostly given up hope that they're going to ever be released at all. Sure, some of the titles have better chances of seeing the light of day than others, but considering the amount of disappointment these games have already given to players over the years, it's probably better for fans if they're publicly given the chop ASAP. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 announced video games that are never coming out. Number 10. Deep Down. First announced at Sony's famed 2013 PlayStation meeting, Deep Down is a co-op dungeon crawler in development from Capcom. The game certainly left an impression when it debuted, with inevitable comparisons being made to the Dark Souls series. But after it was revealed to be a free-to-play game later in the year, word about Deep Down quickly began to peter out. In 2015, producers claimed the project's scope had expanded significantly from those original plans though, in the hope of capturing a bigger player base, but they've been quiet about it ever since. There's hope that it may receive a grand re-unveiling in the future, but deep down, we all know that it's more likely that development on the game has already ended and that Capcom just hasn't bothered to announce it yet. Number 9. Shadow of the Eternals. The in-development sequel to survival horror masterpiece Eternal Darkness, Shadow of the Eternals was thrust into the public eye for all the wrong reasons. Barely a month after the crowdfunding campaign for the sequel began on Kickstarter, the game's co-designer Kenneth McCulloch was arrested and eventually jailed on child porn charges. And by September 2013, the game had failed to reach its funding goal. Twice! In late 2014, director Dennis Dyack created a new company to resume development on the follow-up, but after that, word went quiet until 2016 when Dyack resurfaced with apparently renewed resolve to get it made. Nothing substantial has been heard since though, and probably won't be going forward. Number 8. Below. Though the adventure game had been in development for several years prior, Below was first revealed to the public during Microsoft's 2013 E3 conference, turning a lot of heads with its atmospheric visuals and focus on challenging difficulty, as well as the inclusion of permanent death. However, the developers stopped working on Below during 2016 to make OKKO Let's Be Heroes. It's fair to assume that development has probably resumed on Below since that released, but it's also possible that they'll return to the project and ultimately figure it's just not worth it, especially if they've already been tempted away to tackle more commercial side projects. It would be devastating for fans if the game was canned, considering that it's apparently pretty close to being content complete, but don't be surprised if Microsoft Studios ultimately grows impatient with waiting and decides it's more trouble than it's worth. Number 7. Steep for Switch. Ubisoft's extreme sports title was confirmed for a Nintendo Switch port during the console's reveal event in 2017, but hasn't landed on the Switch despite the console being in gamers' hands for almost a year. Somewhat hilariously, the port was pushed in favor of cashing in on a Winter Olympics edition of the game, with Steep's director nonchalantly saying that it'll come to Switch one day, but that they're now focused on the Olympic content, which doesn't exactly instill much confidence in the project. It's much easier to believe that the port of a game which wasn't exactly a sales hit will be quietly cancelled, to the disappointment of basically no one. Number 6. Tekken Cross Street Fighter. The first game in this series, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, was announced at the same time as Tekken Cross Street Fighter in 2010, with the former hitting shelves in March 2012 using the Street Fighter engine. The latter was poised to flip the script by using the Tekken engine though, but has languished in development hell ever since, most likely due to its Street Fighter themed predecessor selling just 40% of its projected units over its first 2 months on release. By early 2016, the game was deemed to be on hold, even though the core gameplay systems had been fully assembled. With Tekken 7 selling well last year, it's likely that Bandai Namco Studios has effectively cancelled the project and moved to focus solely on the Tekken series. Number 5. The Longest Journey Home. The fourth entry into the cult adventure game franchise known as The Longest Journey was originally revealed as a Kickstarter stretch goal for Dreamfall Chapters in February of 2013. Although the $2 million goal was never reached, falling $500,000 short, franchise director Ragnar Tornquist still expressed a desire to get the game made, though, unfortunately for fans, he changed his tune significantly by mid-2016, stating that, for many reasons, he doesn't think that it will happen. While there still hasn't been an official cancellation, it's fair to say that most fans of the series have since given up hope of ever receiving another game. Number 4. Beneath a Steel Sky 2. Revolution Software, the developers of the original 1994 cyberpunk point-and-click classic Beneath a Steel Sky, stated on September 6, 2012 that the sequel would get made if their Kickstarter for Broken Sword 5: The Serpent's Curse hit $1 million. Though it failed to meet this target, Beneath the Sky 2 was nevertheless given the green light shortly after. Eventually, though, Revolution backpedaled and stated that the game wouldn't be their next production, and although initial reports stated that the game was in active development, by early 2014 this was confirmed to not be the case, with Broken Sword reportedly taking up too many resources. In 2016, designer Charles Cecil said the game was still very much at an early stage, but continued to be coy as to when fans could expect to see it. My guess? Never. Number 3. Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 has had an infamously rough production history, with the first game's developers Techland opting to work on Dying Light instead of this sequel, handing the baton over to Jaeger Development, who helmed the fabulous Spec Ops: The Line for a planned Q2 2015 release. By the time that date came and went, however, Jaeger were relieved from helming the project due to disagreements with publisher Deep Silver, who replaced them with Sumo Digital, who headed up Little Big Planet 3 in March 2016. Deep Silver keeps reaffirming that Dead Island 2 is still in active development, but beyond those claims, we haven't heard a peep about it. Considering how low the hype for this one already was, it feels like the time for the franchise to flourish has long since passed. Number 2. Agent. Though murmurs about the game's development had persisted several years prior, Rockstar Games finally confirmed Agent's existence at E3 2009. Rockstar originally stated that the stealth action game, which they believed could be the next GTA, would hit stores sometime in 2010 exclusively for the PS3. But this came and went, and word went quiet on Agent shortly thereafter. Take-Two Interactive renewed the Agent trademark in mid-2013, and again in late 2016, though this could very well be a matter of formality and bears little indication that the game is still in active development. Don't expect Rockstar to ever officially cancel it, considering just how little they've said about the game over the years, but if you're also holding your breath for it to get announced as an E3 Megaton in the near future, don't. Number 1. Half-Life Episode 3. Okay, I know Half-Life 3 has been talked about to death, so I'll keep this short, but it would have been impossible to make a list about announced games that are never coming out without mentioning Valve's gigantic misfire. After Episode 1 and Episode 2 released in June 2006 and October 2007, Half-Life Episode 3 quickly became infamous in its failure to arrive within a reasonable time frame, and soon thereafter Valve became increasingly cagey about ever discussing the game. Fans began to speculate that Episode 3 had been ditched in favour of a full-fat Half-Life 3, but after a decade of no-shows and the series' 3 key writers leaving Valve, it seems certain that the game is never happening. Sure, it's remotely possible that Valve might release an entirely different Half-Life 3 in the future, but as the straight follow-up to Episode 2 that they promised, not a chance.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe below, and if you're looking for more content like this, then try a few things that are floating about around my ears. It might be fun. I can't promise it though, but it might be.